The maid found out she was pregnant, but did not want to tell the millionaire because he had a dark secret. The file that Isabella Martinez held in her hands trembled slightly, a reflection of the internal battle that was tearing at her conscience. Sitting in her cubicle on the 47th floor of the imposing Bennett Enterprises building in the heart of Manhattan, she watched the computer screen where the digital pregnancy test flashed, confirming her suspicions. Positive, 6 weeks. The timing couldn't have been worse. After 3 years working as executive assistant to Marcus Bennett, CEO of one of the largest technology companies in the United States, Isabella had discovered something that could destroy not only her boss's reputation, but also affect the lives of hundreds of employees. Ms. Martinez, Mr. Bennett requests your presence in his office immediately. The voice of Rachel, the second assistant, sounded through the intercom, startling Isabella. She quickly put the file away in her personal drawer and locked it, feeling the weight of the USB stick in her pocket. That little device contained enough evidence to bring down an empire. Marcus Bennett, at 45, was the embodiment of American success. Tall, always impeccably dressed in tailored Italian suits, he ran his company with a unique blend of charisma and determination. What few knew was that behind that facade of philanthropist and technological visionary, there was a man capable of making questionable decisions. Isabella straightened her navy blazer and ran her hands through her dark hair before entering the presidential office. The panoramic view of New York served as a backdrop for Marcus, who stood contemplating the city. Isabella, we need to talk about the Phoenix Project, he said without turning around. His tone was calm, almost gentle, but Isabella knew that voice well. It was the same one he used before closing crucial deals. Of course, Mr. Bennett, she replied, trying to keep her composure while her stomach churned, a mixture of pregnancy, nausea, and anxiety. I received some interesting information today, he continued, finally turning to face her. His usually warm blue eyes were cold as steel. Someone has been accessing confidential company files over the last few days. Specific files on the Phoenix Project. Isabella's heart skipped a beat. How had he found out? She had been extremely careful, using security protocols and only accessing the files at specific times. Sir, Isabella interrupted Marcus, approaching her desk. You've been working with me for 3 years. I trust you more than anyone else in this company. So I'll be blunt. Do you know something you should know? The question hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Isabella felt her baby as a physical presence between her and the truth she was threatening to reveal. Project Phoenix wasn't just another technological venture. It was an elaborate embezzlement scheme that would directly affect the employees' pension fund. Mr. Bennett, I've always been loyal to the company, she replied, choosing her words carefully. And that's precisely why I need to ask, are you sure about the direction of the Phoenix Project? Marcus studied her for a moment, his face an unreadable mask. Then surprisingly he smiled. Come with me, he said, reaching for his coat. I think it's time you knew the whole truth. As they made their way to the private elevator, Isabella felt her phone vibrate. It was a message from Nathan, her boyfriend of 2 years. We need to talk. It's urgent. Yet another complication to her already complex situation. In the elevator, Marcus remained silent, but Isabella could sense that something important was about to happen. They went down to the basement, an area of the building she had never visited before. What you discovered about the Phoenix Project is just the tip of the iceberg, said Marcus, guiding her through a dimly lit corridor. 3 months ago, I realized that something was wrong with the company's accounts. I started a discreet investigation and discovered something much bigger than I imagined. Isabella followed him, confused, her heart beating faster and faster. They arrive in a room full of monitors and scattered documents. On one wall, a large panel displayed photos and connections that seemed straight out of a conspiracy movie. What's all this? She asked, looking at the information in front of her. This, Isabella, is the real Project Phoenix investigation, replied Marcus, his voice heavy. And I need your help to expose the real culprits. At that moment, Isabella realized that the secret she had discovered was only the beginning of something much bigger. As a hand unconsciously rested on her belly, protecting the new life growing inside her, her mind tried to process the turn of events. What did Marcus Bennett really know? What was his real role in this story? And how could she, pregnant and at the center of a corporate conspiracy, protect herself and her baby while searching for the truth? The answers to these questions would change not only her life, but also the fate of everyone involved in Bennett Enterprises. The game was just beginning, and Isabella Martinez was about to discover that in Manhattan, where power and ambition mix like water and concrete, nothing is quite what it seems. The subterranean room of Bennett Enterprises pulsed with the low hum of computers as Isabella absorbed the magnitude of the information displayed on the walls. Documents, photos, and complex diagrams connected the names of high-ranking executives to an intricate network of suspicious transactions. Project Phoenix is not what it seems, Marcus said, walking over to one of the monitors. In fact, it's a trap I created myself to expose a conspiracy that extends far beyond this company. Isabella felt her legs go weak, a combination of the startling revelation and the pregnancy symptoms she hadn't yet shared with anyone. Discreetly, she leaned on a nearby table. 2 years ago, Marcus continued, I began to notice discrepancies in the financial reports, small inconsistencies that seemed insignificant in isolation, but together formed a disturbing pattern. He clicked a few keys, revealing a series of bank transactions. Money was being siphoned off, but in such a sophisticated way that it went unnoticed in regular audits. And why didn't you report it immediately? Asked Isabella, her analytical mind already processing the implications. Because those responsible are much more powerful than you think, replied Marcus, his eyes reflecting a mixture of determination and concern. Victoria Caldwell, our CFO, is just one piece of the puzzle. She answers to people with connections in Washington, people who could destroy not only the company, but also the lives of our employees. Victoria's name made Isabella shudder. The CFO had always taken a particular interest in her work, often requesting specific reports on the company's financial movements. Project Phoenix, Marcus continued, was designed to look like an embezzlement scheme, but it's actually a decoy. Every confidential document you've found has been carefully planted to attract the attention of the real conspirators. Isabella sat down, feeling the weight of the USB stick in her pocket. So when I accessed those files, you did exactly what I expected, Marcus added with a slight smile. Your integrity and insight have always been your trademarks, Isabella. I knew you wouldn't ignore evidence of something wrong. Just then his phone vibrated again. Another message from Nathan. Please call me as soon as you can. It's about us. Isabella ignored the message, concentrating on the revelation before her. But why tell me all this now? She asked, a hand unconsciously resting on her belly. Marcus hesitated for a moment, his countenance hardening. Because things are about to get complicated. Victoria has scheduled an extraordinary council meeting for tomorrow. I have reason to believe that they plan to remove me from the presidency. And what can we do? We need to act before they do, Marcus replied, taking a folder from a nearby drawer. Inside is the real documentation on the illicit activities of the last 3 years. I need you to keep it safe. Isabella took the folder, her heart racing as she realized the real danger of the situation. Why me? Because you're the only person in this company I can completely trust, said Marcus, his voice carrying a sincerity Isabella had never witnessed before. Besides, Victoria would never suspect an executive assistant. The comment provoked a twinge of irony in Isabella. If he knew about her pregnancy, about how her personal life was about to change drastically, would he still trust her with this mission? A noise in the corridor startled them both. Marcus quickly switched off the monitors. We need to get back. Remember, Isabella, from now on, our every move will be watched. Maintain your normal routine and, above all, don't trust anyone within the company. As they climbed back up to the executive floor, Isabella felt the weight of the revelations and responsibilities on her shoulders. Her baby, her career, and now the future of Bennett Enterprises. Everything seemed to be in a delicate balance. Back at her desk, Isabella watched Victoria Caldwell cross the corridor towards Marcus' office. The CFO, in her impeccable suit and heels that echoed off the marble floor, gave her a penetrating look as she passed. Just then, her phone vibrated for the 3rd time. Nathan's message was now more urgent. We need to talk about the test results. Please call me. Isabella felt her world spin. How did Nathan know about the pregnancy test? And more importantly, how would she protect her baby while navigating this dangerous web of corporate conspiracy? The sun was beginning to set over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Through the office windows, Isabella watched the neighboring buildings gradually light up like stars appearing on the urban horizon. The night promised to be long, and she knew that the decisions she made in the next few hours could change her life forever. Isabella could barely sleep that night. The apartment in Brooklyn Heights, normally her haven of peace, seemed suffocating under the weight of the previous day's revelations. At 3 a.m, sitting on her small balcony overlooking the Manhattan Bridge, she finally returned Nathan's call. "How did you find out about the test?" she asked bluntly. "What test? Isabella, what are you talking about?" Nathan's confused voice made her freeze. "I wanted to talk about the blood tests we did for the joint life insurance." The momentary relief was replaced by a new wave of anxiety. Now she needed to tell Nathan about the pregnancy, but something was stopping her. Maybe it was timing, maybe it was instinct, but she decided to wait. "Sorry, I got things mixed up. Can we talk in person tomorrow?" The next morning, Isabella arrived early at the office. The folder Marcus had given her was tucked away in a secret compartment of her handbag, weighing like lead on her conscience. The executive floor was quiet, with only the distant sound of cleaning crews. "Good morning, Isabella." Victoria Caldwell's voice surprised her. The CFO was standing next to her desk, impeccable in a blood-red ensemble. "Can we talk in private?" Isabella's heart raced, but years of professional experience helped her keep her composure. "Of course, Miss Caldwell." Victoria led her to one of the smaller meeting rooms overlooking Central Park. "You know, Isabella, I've always admired your competence. Marcus is lucky to have you as his assistant." "Thank you, Miss Caldwell." "That's why," Victoria continued, "I was concerned when I noticed some unusual accesses to the company archives." Her eyes were like lasers, piercing straight into Isabella's soul. Files related to the Phoenix Project. Isabella kept her face neutral, remembering Marcus' words about Victoria being just one piece of the puzzle. "I'm part of the project support team, Ms. Caldwell. All my access has been authorized." Of course. Victoria smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "I just wanted to make sure you understand the importance of discretion in our position. After all, accidents happen every day in New York, don't they?" The veiled threat made Isabella's stomach churn, a mixture of pregnancy nausea and real fear. Before she could reply, her phone vibrated. It was Marcus requesting her urgent presence. "Excuse me, Ms. Caldwell. Mr. Bennett needs me." In Marcus' office, Isabella found her boss in a tense video conference with international investors. He signaled for her to wait, and 5 minutes later, ended the call. "Victoria has already made her move," he said, running his hands over his tired face. "She called an extraordinary board meeting for this afternoon, 2 hours ahead of schedule. She just threatened me," Isabella revealed, her hand unconsciously resting on her belly. In a subtle way, but it was a clear threat. Marcus was visibly upset. "That changes everything. We need to act now." He picked up his phone and quickly typed a message. "I have a contact at the FBI who has been quietly investigating this case for months. I'll set up a meeting for today." At that moment, Rachel, the second assistant, rushed into the room. "Mr. Bennett, your wife Charlotte is on the phone. She says it's urgent." Marcus's face paled. "Isabella, I need you to go to the Bank of America on 42nd Street. Ask for Michael Sullivan on the 15th floor. He's waiting for some important documents." Isabella understood the implicit message. The documents were the evidence she was keeping. As she headed for the elevator, her phone vibrated again. It was Nathan. "I'm in the lobby. We need to talk now." The universe seemed to conspire to make her situation even more complicated. In the lobby, Nathan was waiting for her, his normally cheerful face marked by concern. "Bella, we need to talk about the test results." "Nathan, now is not a good time. I'm in the middle of something important at work." "It's about your blood test," he insisted. "The lab called me by mistake." "You're pregnant," she added, finally revealing her secret. I was going to tell you, but so many things have happened. Nathan's face turned into a mixture of surprise and joy, but Isabella had no time for explanations. I promise we'll talk tonight. Right now I need to take care of something urgent. In the cab towards the bank, Isabella tried to organize her thoughts. The folder with the evidence weighed heavily in her bag. Victoria's threat echoed in her mind, and Nathan's expression when he found out about the baby kept running through her thoughts. Her cell phone rang again. It was Marcus. Isabella, don't go to the bank. Charlotte has just warned me that Victoria has people watching you. Go back to the office immediately. But it was too late. When the cab stopped at the 7th Avenue traffic light, Isabella noticed two men in suits in a black SUV watching her intently. Her heart raced as she made a decision that would change the course of everything. Instead of heading to the bank or back to the office, she instructed the taxi driver to take her to a completely different destination. The game had changed, and Isabella knew that her next move would have to be perfect. It was no longer just her life on the line. Now she was also protecting her baby and possibly the future of hundreds of Bennett Enterprises employees. The cab snaked through Manhattan's chaotic traffic as Isabella made her riskiest decision yet. Instead of heading to Bank of America or back to Bennett Enterprises, she instructed the driver to take her to Greenwich Village. The black SUV was still following her, but Isabella knew that area of the city well. She had spent 2 years living there during college. Stop here, she ordered the taxi driver, in front of a busy coffee shop on Bleecker Street. He paid in cash and got out, quickly mingling with the crowd of New Yorkers circulating on the sidewalk. In the reflection of the shop windows, she saw the two men in suits also leaving their vehicle. Isabella entered the cafeteria and headed straight for the ladies' room. There, she took the folder with the evidence out of her bag and put it into a Macy's paper bag that she always carried for emergencies. She swapped her navy blazer for a casual jacket she kept in her bag and let her hair down, completely changing her executive look. Her phone vibrated again. Marcus Bennett. Where are you? He asked, his voice tense. Safe for now, she replied, whispering. But on being followed, Victoria has just called an emergency meeting with the board in an hour's time. Isabella, she has photos of us in the basement room yesterday. Isabella's heart froze. How? Cameras I didn't know existed. She's claiming that we have an affair and that the Phoenix Project is a hoax to embezzle money from the company. The irony of the situation didn't escape Isabella. Victoria was using a lie to cover up the truth, turning a legitimate investigation into a personal scandal. Mr. Bennett, I need to tell you something, said Isabella, her hand instinctively touching her belly. A noise at the bathroom door interrupted her. Through the mirror, she saw one of Victoria's assistants, Lauren Miller, enter the room. I have to go, she whispered quickly. Isabella left the booth casually, pretending to touch up her makeup as Lauren watched her. She left the cafe through the back door, which led to an alley connected to a side street. Years of frequenting the area during college had taught her all the possible escape routes. Her phone vibrated once again. Now was Nathan. Bella, we need to talk about the baby. I'm worried. You left so quickly. Nathan, listen to me, she interrupted, walking quickly down Christopher Street. I need you to do something for me. Go to my apartment and get the black laptop from under my bed. The password is the date of our first date. What's going on? You're scaring me. Trust me. Take the laptop and go to the Belle Claire Hotel on the Upper West Side. Book a room and wait for me there. Don't use your credit card. Pay cash. Isabella hung up before he could protest. Her plan was rapidly forming in her mind. The laptop contained copies of some documents she had scanned the week before, even before Marcus revealed the truth about the Phoenix Project. Getting on the subway at West 4th Street Station, Isabella finally allowed herself to breathe. The folder with the evidence was safe in her seemingly innocent Macy's bag, and she had lost her pursuers, at least temporarily. Her phone vibrated once more, a message from an unknown number. Ms. Martinez, this is Charlotte Bennett. We need to talk. It's about Marcus and Victoria. Meet me at the Low Boathouse in Central Park in 30 minutes. Come a nome. Isabella stared at the message, her heart racing. Charlotte Bennett, Marcus's wife, rarely got involved in company affairs. What could she possibly know about this whole situation? The subway rattled through the dark tunnels as Isabella weighed up her options. Finding Charlotte could be risky, but it could also provide crucial information to understand the true extent of the conspiracy at Bennett Enterprises. In her mind, the pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together. Victoria's urgency to call the meeting, the compromising photos, Charlotte's message, it all seemed part of a bigger plan. Making up her mind, Isabella got off at 72nd Street and started walking towards Central Park. The boathouse, with its classical architecture reflected in the waters of the lake, had always been one of her favorite places in the park. Now, it looked strangely ominous under the cloudy autumn sky. Her phone vibrated once more. It was Marcus again. "Isabella, don't trust anyone. Victoria has just shown evidence that Charlotte has been involved in the scheme from the start. Whatever you do, don't." The call dropped abruptly. Isabella looked at her cell phone screen. No signal. Her instinct screamed at her to turn around, but something urged her to continue. Perhaps it was the journalist inside her, the one who had chosen to work as an executive assistant precisely to better understand the corporate world, or perhaps it was simply the need to find out the truth, not just for herself, but for the baby she was carrying. The boathouse loomed in front of her, its windows glowing softly in the diffused afternoon light. A solitary figure waited on the balcony. Charlotte Bennett, elegant as ever in her Chanel ensemble, her perfectly groomed blonde hair swaying slightly in the lake breeze. Isabella adjusted the strap of the Macy's bag on her shoulder, feeling the weight of the documents that could change the fate of hundreds of people. She took a deep breath and started up the steps toward Charlotte, knowing that the next words exchanged between them could be the key to unraveling the whole mystery, or a trap that could cost her life and that of her baby. Isabella climbed the last steps of the boathouse with calculated caution, her hands tightly gripping the handle of her Macy's bag. Charlotte Bennett was waiting for her with an enigmatic smile, as perfectly composed as her Chanel ensemble. "Ms. Martinez, thank you for coming." Charlotte gestured to a secluded table, protected from prying eyes by an elegant partition. "I imagine you're wondering why I called you here. Mrs. Bennett, with all due respect, this doesn't seem like a good time to dash. To discuss how my husband is using you in his corporate chess game?" Charlotte interrupted, her voice soft but laced with acidity. "Or maybe to talk about how your pregnancy complicates this whole situation?" Isabella felt the blood run cold in her veins. Please sit down," Charlotte instructed, signaling for a waiter. "Ginger tea for Miss Martinez. Excellent for morning sickness. And a martini for me." Reluctantly, Isabella sat down, her mind quickly processing the implications. Charlotte knew about the pregnancy, something she hadn't yet revealed even to Marcus. "Before you ask, yes, I have access to all of Bennett Enterprises' cameras," Charlotte continued, gently adjusting her napkin on her lap, "including the one in the women's restroom on the 47th floor, where you took your pregnancy test 2 days ago." "That's an invasion of privacy," Isabella protested, her protective instinct kicking in. "So is accessing confidential company files," Charlotte retorted gently. "But I'm not here to threaten you, Isabella. I'm here to protect you." The waiter arrived with the drinks, giving Isabella a few seconds to reorganize her thoughts. The ginger tea emanated a comforting aroma, and she had to admit that Charlotte had made the right choice. "Victoria Caldwell is not what she seems," Charlotte continued, lowering her voice. "She's not just trying to take control of the company. She's protecting someone much more powerful. Senator Harrison," Isabella added, connecting the dots. The name was on the documents she had found, always in the margins of the most suspicious transactions. Charlotte arched an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. "You've gone further in your investigation than we imagined. But there's something you still don't know. Harrison is my brother." The revelation hit Isabella like a punch in the gut. Her hands instinctively reached for her belly, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed by Charlotte. "The baby," Charlotte said, her expression softening. "He complicates everything, doesn't he? Just as my own son complicated my situation 20 years ago." "Your son?" "But Marcus never mentioned." "Marcus isn't my son's father," Charlotte revealed, taking a sip of her martini. "Harrison is, and Victoria Caldwell knows it. That's why she has so much power over Bennett Enterprises." Isabella felt the room spin slightly. The implications of this revelation were enormous. "So the Phoenix Project?" It's a smokescreen, Charlotte confirmed. Marcus is trying to protect the company, yes, but he's also trying to protect me. If the truth about my son comes out, Harrison loses not only his political career, but also his financial empire built through Bennett Enterprises. A movement at the entrance to the boathouse caught Isabella's eye. Two men in dark suits, the same ones who had followed her earlier, entered the restaurant. "Don't worry," Charlotte said, noticing their gaze. "They work for me, not Victoria. They're here to ensure our safety." "Why are you telling me all this?" "Because you're pregnant, Isabella," Charlotte replied, leaning forward. "And I know exactly what it's like to be in the middle of a corporate war, carrying an innocent life. You need to understand all the players before you choose your side." Isabella took a sip of her tea, trying to process all the information. "And what is your side in this story, Mrs. Bennett?" "My side is the side of truth," Charlotte replied, pulling a USB stick out of her handbag. "Here's everything you need to know about Harrison, Victoria, and the real operations of Bennett Enterprises. Use it as you see fit. But remember, some truths are more dangerous than lies." Isabella's cell phone vibrated. A message from Marcus. "Victoria is coming to the boathouse. Get out of there now." Charlotte noticed his alarmed expression. "Out the back," she instructed calmly. "My men will make sure you get out safely. And Isabella, protect that baby. He may be your only guarantee of survival in this game." Isabella stood up, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. Charlotte's revelations had completely transformed her understanding of the situation and of her own role in it. As she made her way quickly to the back exit of the boathouse, Isabella realized that she was no longer just a piece on Marcus Bennett's chessboard. She had become a player in her own right, with her own set of secrets to protect. The Manhattan sky was beginning to darken, heavy clouds gathering over Central Park. A storm was approaching, both literally and metaphorically, and Isabella Martinez was about to discover that in a city where secrets are the true currency of power, the truth can be the most dangerous weapon of all. The storm approaching Central Park served as the perfect prelude to the chaos that was about to unfold. Isabella ran through the winding paths at the back of the boathouse, her mind processing Charlotte Bennett's bombshell revelations while trying to keep her balance with the Macy's bag and the new USB stick she was now carrying. Her phone vibrated again. It was Nathan. "Bella, I've arrived at Belclaire. You won't believe what I found on your laptop." "Nathan, I need you not to open any files," Isabella replied, panting as she headed for the east exit of the park. "It's for our own safety." "Too late," he replied, his voice shaking slightly. "There are documents here about Senator Harrison." "Bella, where have you been?" Thunder reverberated through the park, and the first drops of rain began to fall. Isabella spotted one of Charlotte's men, signaling to a discreet black car parked near Fifth Avenue. "Meet me in the basement of the Metropolitan Museum in an hour," she instructed Nathan. "Don't trust anyone until then." The moment she got into the car, Isabella saw Victoria Caldwell getting out of a Mercedes at the main entrance to the boathouse. Their gazes met briefly through the rain that was now falling hard. "Where to, ma'am?" asked the driver, who introduced himself as James. "Metropolitan Museum," she replied, but soon changed her mind when she saw another car appear in the rearview mirror. "No, first take me to Madison Avenue and 63rd Street." Isabella needed time to think. Charlotte's words echoed in her mind. "Harrison is my brother. Marcus is not the father of my child." It was a time bomb of unimaginable proportions, and now it carried not only the original evidence of the Phoenix Project, but also the Bennett Harrison family's darkest secrets. The car stopped in front of a luxury boutique on Madison Avenue. Isabella got out quickly, sheltering from the rain under the elegant marquee. Through the reflection of the shop window, she watched the suspicious vehicle drive straight past, confirming her suspicions that she was being followed. Her phone vibrated with a message from Marcus. "Victoria canceled the board meeting. She knows he met with Charlotte. Don't go back to the office." Isabella entered the boutique, politely greeting the sales assistant as she made her way to the fitting rooms. There, finally alone, she allowed herself a moment to breathe and organize her thoughts. Her hand instinctively rested on her belly, seeking strength in the new life growing inside her. Charlotte's USB stick weighed down her pocket like a grenade about to explode. What secrets did it contain? And more importantly, How could she use this information without putting herself and her baby at risk? Her phone vibrated again, an unknown number. Ms. Martinez, a deep, authoritative male voice, sounded on the other end. "This is Senator Harrison. I'd like to propose a deal." Isabella's heart raced. "How did you get my number?" "I have the resources," he replied simply. "Just as I have the resources to guarantee your safety and that of your baby. If you cooperate, what exactly do you want?" "A simple exchange. All the documents you have, including the USB stick my sister gave you, for a fresh start. Think about it. A new identity, a generous bank account, a peaceful life for you and your son." Isabella felt nauseous, and this time it wasn't just because of the pregnancy symptoms. "What if I refuse? Then I'll have to deal with you in the same way I dealt with the last journalist who tried to expose our family." The threat was crystal clear in his voice. "I need time to think," Isabella replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "You have an hour. Meet me on the roof of MoMA." The call ended abruptly. Isabella checked the time. It was 40 minutes until her meeting with Nathan at the Metropolitan Museum. Fate seemed to be throwing all the players into an inevitable confluence in the cultural heart of Manhattan. Leaving the boutique, Isabella made a decision. She couldn't trust Marcus, who was clearly using her in his own power play. She couldn't trust Charlotte, whose loyalties were nebulous at best. And she certainly couldn't trust Senator Harrison, who had just veiledly threatened her life. But there was one person she could still trust. Someone who, like her, was about to have his life completely transformed by this conspiracy. "Nathan," she typed quickly, "change of plans. Meet me at the MoMA Cafe in 30 minutes. Ring laptop." The rain had subsided to a fine drizzle, and the streets of Manhattan sparkled with the reflection of the city lights in the puddles. Isabella adjusted the strap of her Macy's bag on her shoulder and started walking towards a museum, each step echoing with the weight of the decisions she would have to make in the next few hours. The sun was setting behind the skyscrapers, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange, while the shadows of the Bennetts and Harrisons past were preparing to emerge from the depths of New York's corporate power. And in the midst of it all, Isabella Martinez carried not only the evidence of a conspiracy, but also the responsibility of protecting two lives, her own and that of her unborn child. The Museum of Modern Art pulsed with a peculiar energy on that rainy afternoon. Isabella crossed the main lobby, her mind divided between her appointment with Nathan in the cafe and Senator Harrison's ultimatum on the roof. Each step echoed with the weight of the decisions she would have to make in the next few minutes. "Bella," Nathan waved discreetly from a table in the corner of the cafe, his laptop closed in front of him. His normally relaxed face was tense, deep circles under his eyes revealing a bad night's sleep. "You've seen the files," she said. It wasn't a question. "I've seen enough to understand why you're afraid," he replied, lowering his voice. "But there's something you need to know about Senator Harrison." Isabella sat down, carefully placing the Macy's bag on the table. "What did you find out?" "My brother worked as his assistant 5 years ago," Nathan revealed, his fingers drumming nervously on the table. "He disappeared after mentioning irregularities in some transactions. The police dismissed the case as a suicide, but our family never believed it." Isabella's blood ran cold, the senator's veiled threat in her previous call taking on a new, darker meaning. Her phone vibrated, a message from Victoria Caldwell. "I know you're at MoMA. Last chance to do the right thing." "Nathan, I need you to do something for me," Isabella said, leaning forward. "Take these documents and go straight to the FBI. Don't stop. Don't talk to anyone on the way." "What about you? I have a meeting on the roof." "No." Nathan grabbed her hand. "It's too dangerous in your condition. Let me go in your place." Isabella smiled sadly, touching her belly. "It's precisely because of my condition that I need to do this. Some battles we have to fight alone." The elevator to the roof looked like an execution chamber. Isabella checked her phone one last time. 16:45. The sun was beginning its descent on the Manhattan skyline, painting the skyscrapers in golden hues that contrasted with the approaching storm clouds. The doors opened to reveal a surprising scene. Not only was Senator Harrison waiting, but also Marcus Bennett, Victoria Caldwell, and, most surprisingly, Charlotte Bennett. "Welcome to the grand finale, Ms. Martinez." The senator smiled, a smile that didn't reach his cold eyes. "I imagine you're wondering why we're all here." "Actually," Isabella replied, her voice firmer than she felt, "I'm wondering why you think you still have any control over the situation." Victoria laughed, a humorless sound. "Do you really think that one pregnant assistant can bring down an empire built up over decades?" "No," Isabella replied, taking a step forward. "But the FBI can." Victoria's smile faltered. Marcus Bennett, who had remained silent until then, approached. "Isabella, you don't understand the complexity of this situation," he began. "No, Marcus," Charlotte interrupted, surprising everyone. "She understands perfectly. That's why she's here." The wind was blowing harder now, carrying the harbinger of a storm. Isabella observed the group in front of her, each of them a piece in a power play that had begun long before she entered the scene. "The documents," the senator demanded, holding out his hand. "Where are they?" "In a safe place," Isabella replied, "along with a letter detailing everything I've found out about the Phoenix Project, Charlotte's illegitimate child, and the various accidents that have happened to people who have crossed your path, Senator." Thunder rumbled in the distance, as if punctuating his words. Victoria took a threatening step towards him, but Charlotte stopped her. "It's over, Harrison," Charlotte said, turning to her brother. "She's won." "No one wins against me," the senator snarled, his mask of civility finally falling. "The FBI would disagree." A new voice sounded behind them. Nathan emerged from the elevator, accompanied by 2 federal agents. "Just like the brother you had killed." The ensuing chaos seemed to happen in slow motion. Victoria tried to run, only to be stopped by the agents. Senator Harrison reached inside his jacket, but Marcus was quicker, immobilizing him before he could grab whatever was hidden there. "You planned this," Charlotte told Isabella, a mixture of admiration and resignation in her voice. "I learned from the best," Isabella replied, watching the agents lead Victoria and the senator to the elevator. "Sometimes the best move is to make your opponents think they're in control." The rain finally began to fall, first in gentle drops, then in a dense curtain that washed Manhattan. Nathan approached Isabella, wrapping his arm around her protectively. "Is it over?" he asked. Isabella watched Marcus and Charlotte, now talking to the FBI agents, probably negotiating their own positions in the investigation that would follow. "Almost," she replied, her hand finding his on her belly. "We still have a whole future ahead of us." The storm continued to fall on New York, washing away the secrets and lies that had fueled the Bennett and Harrison power for so long. And on the roof of MoMA, Isabella Martinez finally allowed herself to breathe, knowing that she had chosen the right side of history, not just for herself, but for the new life growing inside her. 3 days after the events on the roof of MoMA, Isabella was looking at the front page of the New York Times through the window of the Presbyterian Hospital cafeteria. The headline was merciless: "Senator Harrison and Bennett Enterprises executives arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme." "Your prenatal is scheduled for 2 p.m., Nathan commented, sliding a cup of chamomile tea in her direction. Dr. Reynolds said he wants to do some additional tests, considering all the stress of the last few days. Isabella nodded distractedly, her eyes fixed on her reflection in the window. She could still see the deep circles under her eyes, marks of the sleepless nights since the confrontation. The weight of the events still haunted her, even with Victoria Caldwell and Senator Harrison in federal custody. Her phone vibrated, a message from Charlotte Bennett. "We need to talk. There's more you need to know." "Don't answer," Nathan warned, noticing her expression. "You've already done your part. Let the FBI deal with the rest." But Isabella knew it wouldn't be that simple. The ramifications of the scandal were only just beginning to emerge. Marcus Bennett had agreed to cooperate with the authorities in exchange for partial immunity, and the details emerging daily in the news were more sordid than anyone could have imagined. Ms. Martinez, an FBI agent, who introduced himself as Agent Cooper, approached her desk. "We have some additional questions about the documents found on Ms. Bennett's flash drive." "I thought we had already closed the depositions," Nathan intervened protectively. "New developments," Cooper explained, sitting down. "We found connections to other unsolved cases, including the disappearance of your brother, Mr. Walker." Nathan paled, his hands unconsciously clenching his coffee cup. The case of the disappearance of his brother, Michael Walker, had been reopened after the arrests, but the investigations were still in their early stages. "What exactly did you find?" Isabella asked, her journalistic instincts momentarily overriding her exhaustion. "Records of bank transfers to an account in the Cayman Islands, dated the day of the disappearance," Cooper replied, lowering his voice. "The same account has been used in 5 other similar cases in the last 10 years. Isabella felt a shiver run down her spine. "The other cases also involved people threatening to expose the scheme?" "Precisely," Cooper confirmed. "And there's more. Charlotte Bennett was listed as a secondary beneficiary of the account." The revelation hit Isabella like a punch in the gut. Could Charlotte, who had seemed like an ally in the end, have been complicit in murder? Her phone vibrated again. Another message from Charlotte. "It's not what it looks like. Please find me. It's about your baby." "What's my baby got to do with it?" Isabella muttered, more to herself than to the others. "Maybe it's time to consider the witness protection program," Cooper suggested, watching her reaction. "Especially considering your condition." Nathan held his hand over the table, his thumb tracing gentle circles in his palm. "He's right, Bella. We can't risk it." But before Isabella could reply, a commotion at the hospital entrance caught her attention. Marcus Bennett, escorted by 2 policemen, was being taken to the emergency room. Blood stained his spotless white shirt. "Attempted suicide in prison," Cooper reported, already on his feet. "Or so it seems." Isabella watched as the medical team rushed Marcus' stretcher through the double doors of the emergency room. His former boss, the man who had started this whole investigation, was now fighting for his life, and possibly carrying secrets that had yet to be revealed. "We need to go," Nathan insisted, helping her to her feet. "Your appointment with Dr. Reynolds?" "No," Isabella interrupted, her voice firm. "I need to talk to Charlotte first." "Isabella, no," Nathan protested. "It's too risky. She mentioned our baby," Isabella argued, unconsciously protecting her belly with her hand. "And after everything we found out about her brother, I need to know if there are any other threats we should be aware of." Cooper considered for a moment. "We can arrange a control meeting. Secure environment, undercover agents nearby." The clock on the wall read 13:30. In half an hour, Isabella should have been in Dr. Reynolds' office, discovering more about the new life growing inside her. Instead, she was about to dive deeper into the Bennett and Harrison's well of secrets. "All right," she finally agreed. "But on one condition. I want access to all the files on Michael Walker's case. If Charlotte was involved in his disappearance, Nathan deserves to know the truth." Cooper nodded, already typing on his phone. "I'll organize the meeting for this afternoon, after your medical appointment. The Plaza Hotel, where we can control all entrances and exits." As they left the cafeteria, Isabella took one last look at the emergency room doors where Marcus had disappeared. A nurse was rushing around, carrying bags of blood. The fate of her former boss, like many other aspects of this story, remained uncertain. "Are you sure about this?" Nathan asked softly as they waited for the elevator. Isabella touched the small volume in her womb, where her son was growing oblivious to all the turmoil around him. "Some truths need to be uncovered, no matter the cost. Your brother deserves justice, and our baby deserves to be born into a world where those responsible for these atrocities can no longer hurt anyone." The elevator doors opened, and Isabella stepped inside, knowing that the next few hours could change everything again. The Plaza Hotel awaited, and with it, another chapter in the plot of power, secrets, and redemption that had become her life. The Plaza Hotel maintained its timeless elegance even in the stormy Manhattan. Isabella adjusted her coat as she crossed the gilded lobby, discreetly surrounded by FBI agents disguised as guests and staff. Nathan had insisted on accompanying her, but she persuaded him to wait in the hotel bar. Some conversations needed to be conducted alone. The result of the ultrasound still echoed in her mind. 12 weeks pregnant, a strong heartbeat. The black and white image of her baby seemed to weigh on her bag like a constant reminder of what was at stake. "Miss Martinez," Charlotte Bennett greeted her from the red velvet armchair where she was sitting. The Palm courtroom was practically empty, except for a few distracted tourists and, of course, the strategically positioned federal agents. "Thank you for coming. You mentioned my baby." Isabella got straight to the point, sitting down. Why? Charlotte took a sip of her tea, her hands shaking slightly. Because 25 years ago, I was in exactly your position. Pregnant, involved in a corporate conspiracy, and completely alone. Your son with Harrison, Isabella added. Marcus knew from the start, Charlotte continued, her voice low. He helped me hide the truth, gave me his name, protected my son. That's why I married him. And the people who died? Michael Walker? Charlotte's face paled. I found out about the deaths later. Harrison, he was always cruel, but I never imagined it would come to this. When Michael started asking questions, I tried to warn him, but too late, Isabella added, feeling nausea that had nothing to do with her pregnancy. The account in the Cayman Islands, Charlotte continued. Harrison put it in my name to incriminate me if anything went wrong. It was his insurance. A waiter approached with a tray of tea, but Isabella politely declined. Her phone vibrated, a message from Cooper. Marcus Bennett has woken up. He's asking to speak to you. Why did Marcus attempt suicide? Isabella asked abruptly. Because he found out the truth about Adam, Charlotte replied, her hands now definitely shaking. My son, he's not from Harrison. Isabella felt the air escape from her lungs. What? He's Marcus's. He always was. But Harrison found out and threatened to expose everything, to destroy not only the company, but Adam's life too. Marcus preferred trying to kill himself to seeing his son go through that. The pieces were beginning to fall into place. Why Marcus had started the investigation, why he had trusted Isabella from the start. There's one more thing, Charlotte continued, reaching into her bag. These are the real documents about Michael Walker. Harrison didn't kill him. He's alive, hiding in Mexico. I helped him escape when I discovered my brother's plans. Isabella took the envelope with trembling hands. Nathan needs to know that. Yes, but there's a price, Charlotte warned. If this information comes out, Harrison will have bargaining power with the FBI. He could get a better deal. What about his son? Adam is safe, out of the country. Marcus made sure of that before. She paused, swallowing. Before he did what he did. Isabella's phone vibrated again. Nathan. Marcus is getting worse. The doctors don't know if he'll last the night. I have to go. Isabella stood up abruptly. But first, I need to know, why did you warn me about the baby? Charlotte smiled sadly. Because you deserve the chance I didn't get to do things the right way from the start. Protect your child, Isabella. In our world, the truth is a weapon that cuts both ways. Leaving the plaza, Isabella found Nathan waiting anxiously in the lobby. His face showed that he already knew about his brother's documents. Cooper told me, he said simply. Michael is alive, Isabella added, handing him the envelope. And I think I know where we can find him. The rain had subsided to a fine drizzle by the time they left the hotel. Presbyterian Hospital awaited them, along with Marcus Bennett and more revelations that could change the course of all their lives. In the cab, Isabella touched her belly, thinking about how a single decision to investigate the Phoenix Project had triggered a series of events that exposed decades of secrets and lies. Now, with a new life growing inside her, her choices carried an even greater weight. Do you still want to go through with this? Nathan asked softly, his hand finding hers. Isabella looked out of the window, watching the lights of Manhattan reflected in the puddles. Some stories need to be told to the end, she replied. For Michael, for Adam, for Marcus, and for our baby. The cab headed towards the hospital, where Marcus Bennett was waiting with his last confessions, and Isabella knew that the real battle was just beginning. The point was no longer to expose the guilty, but to protect the innocent who had been drawn into this web of lies and betrayal. Presbyterian Hospital emanated that characteristic stillness of the early evening when Isabella and Nathan arrived at the intensive care ward. Agent Cooper was waiting for them in the corridor, his face more tense than usual. Marcus is unstable, he informed them, leading them through the automatic doors. The doctors aren't sure if he'll last until tomorrow. If there's anything you need to know, Isabella nodded, her mind still processing Charlotte's revelations at the plaza. Adam, the son everyone thought was the fruit of a forbidden relationship with Harrison, was actually Marcus' son, a truth that could rewrite the entire history of Bennett Enterprises. Is he conscious? She asked, stopping in front of the bedroom door. He comes and goes, Cooper replied, but he specifically asked for you. We've installed recording equipment in the room. Any confession will be admissible as evidence. Nathan squeezed his hand gently. Do you want me to go on with you? Isabella hesitated, then shook her head. I need to do this alone, but stay close. We start to talk about Michael. The mention of his brother's name made Nathan's jaw harden, but he nodded. Charlotte's envelope, still unopened, lay heavy in his coat pocket like a promise of long-awaited answers. The hospital room was a study in shades of white and gray, punctuated by the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitors. Marcus Bennett, once an imposing figure from the corporate world, now looked frail between the hospital sheets. Isabella, his voice was just a whisper. You've come. I'm here, she replied, taking a seat in the chair next to the bed. Charlotte told me about Adam. A faint smile crossed Marcus's pale face. My son, everything I've done, every decision, every move, has been to protect him. Why didn't you tell me before? About the real reason for the investigation? Because I needed to be sure. Marcus coughed slightly. Harrison, he found out the truth 3 months ago. He started blackmailing me, threatening to expose not only Adam's paternity, but also the documents that would prove that Charlotte had helped people escape from him. Like Michael Walker, Isabella added, watching his reaction carefully. Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. Charlotte always tried to protect the innocent. When she discovered Harrison's plans for Michael, she organized his escape. She used the same contacts that had helped other people before. How many more? Isabella asked, her journalistic instincts momentarily overriding her compassion. 7, Marcus replied. 7 people that Harrison would have eliminated if Charlotte hadn't intervened. But each ransom left a trail, bank transfers, false documents. Harrison discovered everything and turned it into his insurance policy. A medical alarm sounded quietly, startling Isabella. The nurse came in quickly, checked the monitors, and adjusted something in the floor before leaving again. I don't have much time, Marcus continued, his breathing more labored. There's a safe in my home office, behind Hopper's painting. The combination is Adam's date of birth, December 15th, 97. Inside you'll find everything. The original Phoenix Project documents, evidence of Harrison's activities, a letter to my son. Why attempt suicide? Isabella asked softly. Why not fight? Because Harrison promised that if I died, he would leave Adam alone. One last gentleman's agreement. Marcus laughed bitterly. But I failed even at that. Isabella felt her baby move, as if responding to the tension of the moment. Your grandson or granddaughter will be born into a better world because of what you started, she said, surprising herself. Marcus' eyes widened slightly. Are you? 12 weeks, she confirmed. And that's why I need to know. Is there anyone else we should fear? Anyone other than Harrison? Marcus tried to sit up, but the effort was too much. Victoria, he whispered. She's not just an accomplice, she's the architect. Harrison may be the public face, but Victoria is the one who has always pulled the strings. And she has connections that not even Charlotte knows about. The heart monitor began to emit more erratic signals. Isabella stood up, ready to call for help. But Marcus grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. The safe, he insisted. Promise you'll protect Adam. Promise you'll tell him the truth when this is all over. I promise, Isabella replied, as the medical team stormed into the room. In the chaotic minutes that followed, Isabella was gently led out while the doctors struggled to stabilize Marcus. In the corridor, Nathan wrapped his arms around her, allowing her to finally release the tears she had been holding back throughout the conversation. Did you get the answers you needed? He asked softly. Some, she replied, wiping her eyes. But now we have to go to his house. There's a safe. Not today, Nathan interrupted firmly. You need to rest. The baby needs you to rest. Cooper approached, switching off his recording equipment. I agree. I'll have agents watching Bennett's house tonight. Tomorrow morning, with a clear head, we'll continue. Isabella wanted to protest, but the fatigue of the last few days finally caught up with her. Her phone vibrated. One last message from Charlotte. Victoria has left the country. Adam is safe, but you need to protect yourself now. As they left the hospital, Isabella reflected on how a simple corporate investigation had turned into a complex web of family secrets, divided loyalties and redemption. The safe at Marcus' house waited, promising answers that could finally close this chapter, or open others that were even more surprising. The morning brought a deceptive calm to Manhattan. Isabella woke up in her Brooklyn Heights apartment with a sense of urgency that not even the fatigue of pregnancy could suppress. Marcus Bennett had survived the night, but remained in critical condition at Presbyterian. The agents kept watch on his house all night, Nathan informed him, handing him a cup of ginger tea. Cooper called. "They're ready to meet us there in an hour." Isabella nodded, her mind focused on the safe behind Hopper and the secrets it held. Marcus's revelation about Victoria being the real mastermind behind everything still reverberated in her thoughts. "Were you able to sleep?" she asked, noticing the deep circles under Nathan's eyes. "I spent the night reading the documents about Michael," he admitted, taking a seat on the edge of the bed. "Bella, if he really is alive in Mexico, we need to find him." "We will," she promised, covering his hand with her own. "But first, we need to make sure that Victoria can't hurt anyone else." Marcus Bennett's Upper East Side apartment was a testament to his success. A duplex overlooking Central Park, decorated with a mix of modern art and carefully selected antiques. Agent Cooper was waiting for them in the lobby with his team. Forensics have already been through the apartment, he informed them as they rode up in the private elevator. They found no signs of forced entry or electronic surveillance. Isabella felt her heart race as they entered the main office. The Hopper, a nocturnal scene from a lonely diner, dominated the wall behind Marcus' desk. "December 15th, 97, she murmured, approaching the painting. The date of birth of Adam, the son Marcus had protected for so long. The safe revealed its contents with a soft click. Meticulously organized folders, a brown envelope addressed to Adam Bennett, and a silver USB stick with the initials MB engraved on it. "That's," Cooper began, but was interrupted by the sound of heels in the corridor. Charlotte Bennett appeared in the doorway, her normally composed face marked by anxiety. "Isabella, we need to talk." Victoria's made contact. The atmosphere in the office changed instantly. Cooper signaled to his agents, who discreetly took up strategic positions. "What does she want?" Isabella asked, still holding the documents from the safe. "An exchange," Charlotte replied, her voice trembling slightly. "She has evidence that could completely exonerate Harrison and incriminate Marcus. She wants the documents from the safe in exchange for silence." Nathan stepped forward, protective. "And why should we trust you? After everything we've discovered?" "Because she also has Adam," Charlotte revealed, tears finally streaming down her perfectly made-up face. "My contact in Mexico. She found him before we did." Isabella felt the weight of this revelation like a punch in the gut. Adam, the son Marcus had dedicated his life to protecting, was now a pawn in Victoria's endgame. "How much time do we have?" Cooper asked, already in operational mode. 2 hours, Charlotte replied. "She wants to do the exchange on the High Line. Just me and Isabella." "Absolutely not," Nathan protested. "It's too dangerous. The baby—" "That's exactly why I need to go," Isabella interrupted, her hand instinctively protecting her belly. "Victoria doesn't know about the pregnancy. That could be to our advantage." Cooper considered for a moment. "We could prepare an operation. Teams on the rooftops, undercover agents." "No," Charlotte interjected. "Victoria will figure it out. She knows FBI procedures better than we realize." Isabella opened one of the folders in the safe, revealing documents detailing years of financial manipulation. She never intended Harrison to get caught, did she? He was just the perfect front, the corrupt politician, the manipulative brother. "Victoria built up her network over decades," Charlotte confirmed. "Harrison, Marcus, me. We were all pieces on her board." Isabella's phone vibrated, a message from a block number. "Bring the documents from the safe to the High Line at 2 p.m. Come alone with Charlotte. Adam is looking forward to meeting your real family." "How did she know about the safe?" Nathan asked, reading the message over Isabella's shoulder. "Because she probably has cameras in every room at Presbyterian," Isabella realized. "She heard my last conversation with Marcus." The morning sun finally penetrated through the office windows, illuminating the Hopper on the wall. That lonely scene of a diner at night now seemed strangely prophetic. In a few hours, Isabella would face Victoria in another isolated urban setting, with innocent lies hanging in the balance. "I'll do it," she declared, carefully tucking the documents into her bag. "But I need you to trust me. I have a plan." Nathan hugged her, whispering in her ear, "I won't leave you alone in this." Isabella smiled, thinking about how her life had changed since she had found out about her pregnancy just a few weeks ago. Now, she carried not only a new life inside her, but also the weight of truths that could destroy or save several other lives. The high line awaited, and with it, the final confrontation with Victoria Caldwell, the woman who had manipulated everyone as pieces in her elaborate game of power and revenge. The high line, that elevated urban oasis built on abandoned tracks, was strangely empty for an autumn afternoon. Isabella walked along the winding path between carefully planned gardens, Charlotte walking silently beside her. The weight of the documents in her bag seemed to increase with every step. "Victoria was always fascinated by this place," Charlotte commented, breaking the tense silence. She said it was the perfect example of how something abandoned and forgotten could be transformed into something powerful. Isabella absorbed the information, thinking about how Victoria had turned forgotten secrets into instruments of power. "Where's Nathan?" she asked quietly. "Following the plan," Charlotte replied. Cooper made sure he arrived at the agreed location unnoticed. They were approaching the meeting point, a more secluded area near 23rd Street, where an old industrial structure created elongated shadows in the late afternoon. Isabella felt her baby move, as if responding to the tension of the moment. "Over there," Charlotte pointed discreetly. Victoria Caldwell was standing next to a wooden bench, looking impeccable in her black suit. Next to her, a young man who could only be Adam. The resemblance to Marcus was undeniable. Two men in dark suits stood a few meters behind, apparently unarmed, but clearly dangerous. "Isabella," Victoria smiled, that cold smile she had seen so many times in the office. "I'm glad you decided to be reasonable." "Where's the evidence you mentioned?" Isabella asked, keeping a safe distance. Victoria gestured, and one of the men held up a folder. "All here, original documents showing how Marcus embezzled funds through the Phoenix Project, using Harrison as a scapegoat. Fascinating how a signature in the wrong place can change an entire narrative, isn't it?" Adam remained silent, his eyes, identical to Marcus, alternating between his mother and Isabella. Before the exchange, Isabella said, her hand instinctively protecting her belly, "I want to know why. Why manipulate all these years? Why destroy so many lives?" A flash of something, anger, regret, crossed Victoria's face. "You wouldn't understand. When I started at Benton Enterprises, I was just another ambitious assistant like you. But I quickly learned that loyalty and honesty get you nowhere. Marcus, Harrison, Charlotte, they all had their little secrets, their weaknesses. I just took advantage of the opportunities." "And Michael Walker?" Isabella pressed. "Was he also just an opportunity?" "A miscalculation," Victoria admitted. "He found out too much too quickly. Charlotte may have thought she saved him, but she only postponed the inevitable." At that moment, a movement in the shadows caught Isabella's eye. Nathan, following the plan, was moving into position. "The documents," Victoria demanded, holding out her hand. Isabella slowly reached for her bag. "You know, Victoria, you made a mistake by underestimating Marcus. He may have made mistakes, but he always protected those he loved. Like his son. Adam means nothing to me," Victoria dismissed. "He's just another piece on the board." "No," Isabella smiled, finally understanding. "He's proof of your biggest miscalculation. Because while you were busy manipulating everyone, you didn't realize you were being manipulated." A gunshot cut through the air, making everyone duck. Nathan emerged from the shadows, gun in hand, as FBI agents emerged from various points on the High Line. Victoria's security guards were quickly overpowered. "FBI, freeze!" Cooper shouted, approaching with his team. Victoria tried to run, but Charlotte stopped her with surprising force. "It's over, Victoria. Michael is alive, and he's ready to testify." Isabella saw the exact moment when Victoria's mask of control shattered. Adam ran into his mother's arms, while Nathan approached, holstering his gun, part of the plan they had devised in Marcus's office. The documents in the safe, Isabella explained, taking them out of her bag, weren't just about the Phoenix Project. Marcus kept records of everything: his manipulations, the murders, even his connections with Mexican cartels. He knew that one day you would try something like this. Victoria was handcuffed in silence, her posture still elegant even in defeat. Cooper coordinated the seizure of evidence while other agents cordoned off the area. "Are you okay?" Nathan asked softly, hugging Isabella. "We are," she replied, including her baby in her answer. "But it's not over yet, is it?" "No," he agreed. "We still need to find Michael." Charlotte approached, Adam still clinging to her. "He's on his way to New York. As soon as Victoria was arrested, I gave the signal for him to come out of hiding." The sun was beginning to set over Manhattan, painting the High Line in shades of gold and crimson. Isabella watched Victoria being led away by the agents, thinking about how a single discovery, her pregnancy followed by the revelation of the Phoenix Project, had triggered the dismantling of years of conspiracy and manipulation. "Let's go and see Marcus," she decided. "He needs to know that Adam is safe." As they left the High Line, Isabella reflected on how the truth, however painful, had the power to set you free. Adam would finally meet his real father, Nathan would find his brother again, and his own son would be born into a slightly fairer world. But there were still chapters of this story to be written, and Isabella knew that some truths still needed to come to light before everyone could truly move on. The room at the Presbyterian where Marcus Bennett was fighting for his life had become a kind of makeshift headquarters. Isabella, Nathan, Charlotte, and Adam awaited news from the doctors while Cooper coordinated Victoria's arrest operation via his phone. "She's cooperating," Cooper reported, disconnecting a call. "She's already provided locations of compromising documents in 3 different states. FBI teams are moving in now." Adam, sitting by the window, watched the city in silence. At 25, he carried on his shoulders the weight of a newly discovered identity and a lifetime of unraveling lies. "He'll wake up," Charlotte assured him, touching her son's shoulder. "Your father's a fighter." The word father made Adam cringe slightly. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "All those years, to protect you," Isabella interjected softly. "Marcus knew that the less you knew, the less danger you'd be in." "And how much did that protection cost?" Adam asked, turning to face them. "How many lives were destroyed in the process?" "Michael Walker, all those other people." Nathan, who had been anxiously monitoring his phone, suddenly stood up. "Michael just landed at LaGuardia. He's on his way." Isabella felt her heart race. After years apart, the Walker brothers would finally be reunited. Her hand instinctively found her womb, thinking about how parents' choices affect their children's lives for generations. A movement in the hospital bed attracted everyone's attention. Marcus was starting to wake up, his eyes opening slowly, searching the room until they found Adam. "Son," he whispered, his voice hoarse. Adam hesitated for a moment before approaching the bed. "Is it true? Are you really my father?" "I always have been," Marcus replied, tears streaming down his pale face. "Every decision, every move, was to keep you safe." "Victoria confessed everything," Charlotte informed him, moving closer to the other side of the bed. "About how she found out the truth and started manipulating us. How she used Harrison, turned him into the perfect villain while pulling the strings behind the scenes." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, processing the information. It's safe," Isabella assured him. "All the documents have been handed over to the FBI. Victoria won't hurt anyone else." A commotion in the corridor caught everyone's attention. Michael Walker, still wearing clothes with Mexican labels, burst through the door. Nathan froze, staring at the brother he hadn't seen for 5 years. "Nate," Michael said simply, before the brothers merged in an emotional embrace. Isabella watched the scene, thinking about how a single investigation had triggered so many reunions, revelations, and redemptions. Her phone vibrated, a message from Cooper. "Victoria is asking to speak to you. Just you." "Don't go," Nathan said, still hugging his brother, but noticing his expression. "I have to," Isabella replied. "I need to understand why she did all this. Why destroy so many lives?" "I'll go with you," Michael offered, surprising everyone. After all, I'm one of the lives she tried to destroy. Maybe it's time we faced our demons together. Marcus shifted on the bed, tried to sit up. Isabella, he called out. In the safe, there's one last thing you need to know. A file on your own family. The room fell completely silent. Isabella felt the air escape from her lungs. What do you mean? Victoria didn't choose you to be my assistant by chance, Marcus revealed. Your father, he worked at Bennett Enterprises 20 years ago. He was one of the first to discover the irregularities. Victoria, he didn't die in a car accident, Isabella added, memories of her childhood suddenly gaining new perspective. It was her. Charlotte moved to support her, noticing how Isabella paled. You need to sit down. Think about the baby. The baby is exactly why I need to do this, Isabella replied, her voice steady despite the tears that threatened to fall. I need to end this cycle of secrets and lies before it's born. Nathan stepped closer, entwining his fingers in hers. Then we'll all go together. No more facing things alone. The sun was beginning to set over Manhattan, painting a hospital room in golden hues. Marcus watched the scene with a mixture of pride and regret. His son finally knew the truth. But at what cost? Cooper, Isabella called out. Tell Victoria I'll be there in an hour. And tell her I'm not going alone. It's time for all the truths to come out. As the group prepared to leave the hospital, Isabella realized that some stories need generations to be fully told. Her baby, growing inside her, would be part of a new chapter. One where the truth, however painful, would no longer need to be buried under layers of lies and manipulation. The FBI interrogation room was a study in gray and steel, as cold as the smile Victoria Caldwell still kept on her perfectly made-up face. Isabella entered accompanied by Michael Walker and Nathan, their footsteps echoing on the polished concrete floor. Ah, a family gathering, Victoria commented, her cuffs clinking slightly as she adjusted her posture in the chair. Although I note that your father was unable to attend, Ms. Martinez. Isabella felt Nathan squeeze her hand gently, a silent reminder to keep calm. Why my father, Victoria? He posed no threat to you. Robert Martinez. Victoria pronounced the name as if savoring every syllable. He was like you, idealistic, determined, unable to ignore the small discrepancies in financial reports. But unlike you, he didn't have the protection of Marcus Bennett. Michael stepped forward, his presence a vivid reminder of the consequences of Victoria's actions. How can you talk so casually about destroying lives? Destroy? Victoria Nafsofidi. I built an empire. I turned Bennett Enterprises from a mediocre family business into a global powerhouse. Every life I destroyed was a necessary sacrifice for something greater. Greater for whom? Isabella questioned, her hand unconsciously protecting her belly. For you? For the cartels you financed? For the politicians you bought? Victoria leaned forward, her eyes fixed on Isabella's protective gesture. Ah, so the rumors are true. You are pregnant. Interesting how history has a way of repeating itself. Isn't it? Your father also had a family to protect when he decided to be a hero. Enough games, Nathan interjected. You asked for this meeting. Why? Because, Victoria replied, leaning back, I want to make one last deal. I have information that the FBI hasn't discovered yet. Offshore accounts, ongoing operations, people who would prefer to remain in the shadows. In exchange, I want protection, and I want Isabella to hear the real story from Robert Martinez. Agent Cooper, watching through the mirror glass, entered the room. Any deal will need to be approved by the federal prosecutor, but go ahead. Victoria smiled, that smile that had fooled executives and politicians for decades. Robert didn't die in a car accident. He uncovered something much bigger than simple embezzlement. He uncovered a network of information trafficking, corporate secrets, government data, all being sold to the highest bidder. Isabella felt her legs weaken, but she stood firm. And you killed him to protect that network. No, Victoria replied, her mask of control finally showing cracks. I offered him the same thing I'm offering you now, a place in the organization, protection, power, but he refused. And then Harrison made the decision for all of us. But you could have stopped it, Michael observed. Just as you could have stopped what they tried to do to me. Power requires sacrifice, Victoria replied simply. Your father understood that too late, Isabella. I hope you'll be wiser. Isabella felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with her pregnancy. The pieces of the puzzle were finally falling into place. Her father had not been just another victim, but a real threat to Victoria's criminal empire. You're wrong, Isabella declared, her voice firm. My father understood perfectly. He understood that some things are more important than power, like integrity, family, doing the right thing, even when it costs everything. Victoria watched Isabella for a long moment, as if she saw something familiar in her determination. You're just like him, and it's going to cost you, just as it cost him. The difference, Nathan interjected, is that she's not alone. Cooper signaled, and 2 agents entered the room. Victoria Caldwell, based on new evidence in your own confession, you're being charged with conspiracy, first-degree murder, and several other federal crimes. As Victoria was led out, Isabella remained motionless, processing everything she had discovered. Her phone vibrated, a message from Charlotte. Marcus wants to see all of you. Adam is ready to know the full truth. Shall we? Nathan asked softly. Isabella nodded, realizing that this was not an end, but a new beginning. Her baby moved, as if in agreement. On the way to the hospital, the streets of Manhattan shone with the promise of a new day. The truth about her father, although painful, had finally freed Isabella from the weight of the doubts she had carried for so long. In Marcus' room, Adam was waiting with Charlotte. The young man seemed different now, lighter, perhaps, despite the weight of the revelations. Isabella, Marcus called weakly. Your father, he was a good man. I should have done more to protect him. You're doing it now, she replied, helping to expose the truth, protecting others from suffering the same fate. The afternoon sun streamed in through the hospital windows, bathing everyone in a golden light that seemed to symbolize a new chapter. Michael and Nathan chatted quietly in the corner, reconstructing the lost years. Charlotte held Adam's hand, finally at peace with the choices she had made to protect him. Isabella touched her womb, thinking of how her son would be born into a world that was a little fairer thanks to the courage of people like his father, like Marcus, like everyone who chose truth over power. The cycle of secrets and lies had come to an end, but a new story was just beginning. A story of redemption, reconciliation, and above all, hope.